Today we are revealing two rare Jefferson Nickels coins that collectors are paying huge money for. And the craziest part is, you might already own one. Hello friends, and welcome back to the Expensive Coins History channel. Before we go any further, take a second and make sure you're subscribed, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you look at the coins sitting quietly in your home right now. Because most people don't realize this. Some of the most valuable coins in the world are not ancient treasures, not gold, not hidden in museums. They are modern coins. Coins that look completely ordinary. Coins that pass through everyday hands, unnoticed, unappreciated, and then suddenly, worth a life-changing amount of money. And today, we're starting with one of those coins. A coin that, at first glance, doesn't demand attention. But once you understand its story, once you see what makes it different, you will never look at a nickel the same way again. Picture this. It's the early 1980s. America is moving through a period of economic change. Inflation had reshaped how people thought about money. Small denominations like nickels were used constantly, passed from person to person, day after day, without a second thought. No one stopped to examine them. No one imagined that one of those nickels, just one, could eventually be worth more than most people earn in a year. And yet, that is exactly what happened. Because in 1983, at the Denver Mint, something subtle took place. Nothing dramatic. No announcement. No headlines. Just the quiet production of millions of Jefferson Nickels, all seemingly identical. But hidden within that production, there were tiny variations. Small details. Nearly invisible differences that only the most observant eyes would ever catch. And those tiny details changed everything. The 1983 Jefferson Nickel is not rare in the traditional sense. Millions were made. It was never meant to be special. It was never intended to stand out. But that's exactly why it became extraordinary. Because rarity, in the world of coin collecting, is not always about how many were made. It's about how many survived in a certain condition. And that is where the story shifts. You see, most of these nickels were used heavily. They moved through vending machines, cash registers, pockets, drawers. They were scratched, worn down, damaged over time. They lived hard lives. So while millions existed, almost none remained in pristine, untouched condition. And then a few did. A very small number of 1983 nickels were preserved in near-perfect condition. Coins that never entered full circulation. Coins that avoided the wear and tear of everyday use. Coins that, decades later, would be examined under magnification, graded, studied, and suddenly recognized for what they truly are. And when one of these coins appears in top condition, something incredible happens. Collectors notice. Experts confirm. And the market reacts. Because when demand meets extreme condition rarity, value doesn't just increase. It explodes. Now imagine holding one of these coins. At first, it feels ordinary. The familiar weight. The common design. The same portrait that millions have seen countless times. But then, you look closer. The sharpness of the details. The untouched surfaces. The way the light reflects off it differently. Cleaner, brighter, almost frozen in time. And that's when it hits. This isn't just a coin. This is a survivor. A piece of history that somehow escaped decades of damage and arrived in the present almost exactly as it left the mint. That's what collectors are really paying for. Not just metal, not just a date, but preservation, perfection, and the story behind it. Because every high-value coin carries a kind of mystery. How did it survive? Where was it kept? Why wasn't it used? Questions that may never be fully answered, but make the coin even more fascinating. And here's where things get even more interesting. Most people who own valuable coins don't realize it at first. They find them by accident. In old jars. In inherited collections. In forgotten drawers. Sometimes even in pocket change. Because these coins don't announce themselves. They don't shine differently to the untrained eye. They don't come with a label that says valuable. They wait, quietly, until someone finally takes a closer look. And that moment, that realization, is what turns an ordinary day into something unforgettable. Think about that. Right now, somewhere, someone is holding a coin they believe is worth 5 cents. When in reality, it could be worth thousands. Or more. That's the hidden world of coin collecting. A world where knowledge turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. where attention to detail becomes the difference between overlooking something and discovering something life-changing. And the 1983 Jefferson Nickel sits right at the center of that idea. It represents a shift in how value is understood, not based on age, not based on metal, but based on condition, rarity within abundance, and the ability to recognize something others have missed. That's why collectors are willing to pay such extraordinary amounts. Because they're not just buying a coin. They're buying a moment in time that was preserved against the odds. And when one of these coins reaches the highest levels of grading, when it is confirmed to be among the finest known examples, the price reflects that reality. It's no longer just a collectible. It becomes a benchmark, a reference point, a symbol of what's possible in the world of modern coin collecting. And that brings us to something important. If you're watching this right now, there's a reason. Maybe you've already started looking at your coins differently. Maybe you've begun to wonder what might be hidden in plain sight. Or maybe you're just starting to realize that value doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Either way, this is where awareness begins. Because once you understand what to look for, once you begin to pay attention to details like mint marks, condition, strike quality, you step into a completely different perspective. You stop seeing coins as small change and start seeing them as opportunities. And the truth is, opportunities like this don't come with warnings. They don't announce themselves in advance. They simply exist, waiting to be discovered. So the question becomes, what's sitting in your collection right now? What's been overlooked? What's been underestimated? Because the 1983 Jefferson Nickel is proof that even the most common-looking coin can carry extraordinary value under the right circumstances. And for those who take the time to look closer, the rewards can be far beyond anything they expected. Now here's the part that truly captures attention. When a top condition example of this coin enters the market, when everything aligns, rarity, condition, demand, the value can reach up to $129,000. Yes, for a coin most people would walk past without a second glance. And that is exactly why this story matters. Because it challenges assumptions. It forces you to rethink what value really looks like. And it opens the door to possibilities that most people never even consider. But here's the thing. This is only the first half of the story. Because there's another coin. Another Jefferson Nickel. Another quiet piece of history that followed a different path, but arrived at an equally incredible destination. And its story might be even more surprising. So if you're ready, tell me to continue. And I'll take you into the second chapter, where the 1982 Jefferson Nickel reveals a completely different kind of rarity and an even more fascinating journey. And now, we move into the second chapter of this story. Because just when you begin to understand how one ordinary-looking nickel can transform into something extraordinary, another coin steps forward with a completely different path, a different mystery, and an even deeper layer of intrigue. This is the story of the 1982 Jefferson Nickel. At first glance, it looks no different from any other nickel. Same familiar portrait, same size, same weight. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't try to stand out. And yet, hidden within this coin is a detail that changed everything. To understand why, you have to go back to 1982. Because that year was not just another routine year for coin production in the United States. It was a year of transition, a year of subtle change inside the minting process itself. And whenever change happens, even small change, something unusual tends to follow. In 1982, the Philadelphia Mint was producing Jefferson Nickels without a mint mark being used on U.S. coins in earlier decades. But by this time, the P mint mark had already been introduced for certain denominations, and its presence carried meaning. It identified origin. It told a story about where the coin came from. And for collectors, that small letter became incredibly important. Because when systems shift, when production methods evolve, there are moments where things don't go exactly as planned. Moments where small inconsistencies appear. Moments where coins are struck differently, subtly, quietly, almost invisibly. And that's where the 1982 nickel begins to separate itself from the rest. Because among the millions that were produced, a very small number exhibit characteristics that collectors spend years searching for. It's not just about the date. It's not just about the mint mark. It's about the combination of factors, the alignment of details, the condition, the strike, the preservation. You see, by 1982, Nickels were already heavily used in everyday transactions. They were not protected. They were not stored carefully. They were spent over and over again, worn down by time and use. So just like the 1983 D, survival in top condition became incredibly rare. But the 1982 P adds another layer. Because within that year, subtle variations in strike quality and surface finish created coins that, under magnification, look dramatically different from the average example. To most people, these differences are invisible. But to a trained eye, they are everything. Sharpness in Jefferson's profile, clarity in the lettering, the smoothness of the fields, the absence of marks. Each of these details adds up, slowly building the identity of a coin that stands apart. And when all of those elements come together in a single piece, something remarkable happens. That coin stops being common. It becomes exceptional. Now imagine the journey of one of these coins. It leaves the mint in 1982, identical to millions of others. It enters circulation, or maybe, just maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's set aside, forgotten, stored away in a drawer, a roll, a small container. Years pass, decades pass, the world changes, but the coin remains, untouched, waiting. And then one day, it's rediscovered, picked up, examined, studied more closely than ever before. And suddenly, what seemed ordinary reveals something extraordinary. That moment is what collectors live for. Because it's not just about finding a coin. It's about uncovering something that has been hidden in plain sight for years. And the 1982 P. Jefferson Nickel delivers exactly that kind of experience. But here's where things become truly fascinating. Unlike coins that are famous for dramatic errors or obvious visual differences, this coin's value is rooted in something far more subtle. It's about perfection within imperfection, a coin that exists within a sea of similar pieces, yet rises above them through the smallest of details. And that's what makes it so powerful in the collector's world. Because it rewards patience. It rewards knowledge. It rewards the ability to see what others overlook. And just like before, most people never notice. They spend these coins without a second thought. They pass them along, unaware of what they might be holding. But a very small number of people, take a closer look. And those are the ones who find them. Those are the ones who understand. Those are the ones who recognize that value is not always obvious, but it is always there, waiting to be discovered. Think about that for a moment. Two coins, both worth 5 cents in everyday use. Both nearly identical to millions of others. And yet, under the right conditions, in the right state, with the right combination of details, they become something else entirely. They become rare. They become desirable. They become valuable beyond expectation. And the 1982 P stands as one of the most powerful examples of that transformation. Because when one of these coins reaches the highest known levels of preservation, when it is graded among the finest examples ever seen, collectors don't hesitate. They recognize what they're looking at. They understand how rare it truly is. And when demand meets that level of rarity, the result is extraordinary. Values can climb rapidly, dramatically, reaching levels that most people would never associate with a nickel. And that brings us to the moment that changes everything. Because when a top-tier example of the 1982 P. Jefferson Nickel appears, its value can reach up to $135,000. Let that sink in. A single coin, small enough to fit in your pocket, common enough to be ignored, yet rare enough, under the right conditions, to command a price that rivals luxury items, investments, even property. And that is the hidden truth behind these coins. They are not valuable because they are old. They are not valuable because they are made of precious metal. They are valuable because of what they represent. Rarity within abundance. Perfection within imperfection. Discovery within the ordinary. And now, everything comes together. Because you've seen both sides of the story. The 1983 D, a coin that survived against the odds in near-perfect condition, reaching values up to $129,000. And the 1982 P, a coin shaped by subtle variation and exceptional preservation, reaching up to $135,000. Two different journeys. Two different paths. One powerful idea. That extraordinary value can exist where you least expect it. So the next time you see a nickel, don't dismiss it. Don't assume it's just spare change. Take a closer look. Because hidden within the most ordinary objects are stories waiting to be discovered. And sometimes, those stories are worth far more than anyone ever imagined.